how critical we should be of f4, which is why I said mouse slip, because f4 was so obvious. It was the computer highlighting that. But frankly, like any player knows that you have to blockade the opposite color square of the bishop. And the whole point of that line, trading queens and playing knight d4, was to play f4, Amon. Like, that's the whole reason
Right.
you do that. And so I have no idea what just happened there for Pragg, but Fabi strikes back and he's up a game.
I mean, yeah, I can only assume it's a mouse slip. It's just that my reaction, if I had mouse slipped that, would be a lot different. But I think that just speaks to the composure of Pragg. I think we have to just assume it's a mouse slip as we're into the next game, because there's just no way for me to even for a second believe that he would play any other move except f4.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're just tuning in, we have a very close match, as you can see. We're about whatever it is here, a few minutes into the 3-minute portion. But don't go anywhere, because given that we've seen some of the highest quality chess of any SCC match, and then some of the weirdest moments, including mouse slips for both players, who knows what's going to happen today? So this is going to be close, I think, all the way to the end.
And so maybe if you want to just jump back a few moves here, it was a rather wild opening, not to spend too much time on it as the action's going on, but there are just a few moments, this d5 move, total tension in the center. We saw captures on e5, captures on e4, and then basically everyone is doing this thing where it's like, okay, you take, I take, you take, I take. But the problem is after pawn takes on g7, you can't take on g2, because then you would take not the rook, but the bishop with check. And then you'd be able to save your rook on h1. So we see the pawn recaptured, but then still you can't play queen takes f3 because of knight to e5, and the bishop on d3 is loose. So kind of a weird position where even though white's up a clean pawn here, you now have to double your pawns with g takes f3, and that's why we get this unusual position that we have now where you're up a pawn as Fabi, but incredibly strange opening.
Well said, sir. Quick breakdown of the tactics that get us a unique position. The pawns are equal in terms of total files occupied, but white is up an awkward and kind of ugly duckling f-pawn here. It's funny, the computer kind of likes white, I guess, because computers are materialistic, but I feel like black's pieces are just so active, and this pawn is nothing special, that I think Pragg is doing just fine here. And yeah, what a weird opening.
Agree. As you would say, Danny, agree town, population us.
Hey, don't make it too awkward. The cringy jokes, but yes, it's been more than a show before I've said that. But thank you, bringing it back. Agreement town, population us.
This looks like a good one here for Pragg. Nothing to worry about. I mean, rook g1 is always there, but I mean, as you pointed out, knight d3, right? This move, like on its own, looks like an equalizing type of move. So I'm not that concerned if I'm Pragg here. I know I've got the bishop pair, got lines to the king, and if I this is one of those positions. If you want to put it on the board, let's say h4 here. Danny, h4, bishop f8, h5, rook takes c3. Gotta let me have my mate. Let's go.
This is like a tactic you get in the chess.com puzzles. You have this position and they play h5, and you have to find rook takes c3 and bishop a3. Know your patterns, kids. But okay, jokes aside, like, the rooks came off for a reason. White had to get rid of the pressure, and now we're in an endgame where the bishop pair should be just enough. I mean, this extra pawn really is just not very good at all, and I'm surprised the computer even thinks that white's a little better here. Okay, now it's changed his mind.
Yeah, usually the ultimate goal here, which one side wants to do and the other side should never allow, is the exchange of dark square bishops. I'll leave it up to the chat to interpret which side wants to do it. But that's what is probably on Fabi's mind here. If the dark square bishops disappear, immediately we get a completely different evaluation. So be on the lookout for that this entire endgame.
Yeah. No, it's a really good foreshadowing, because if I'm sorry to spoil it for chat, but I'm just going to say, if the dark square bishop disappears, suddenly white's winning chances go through the roof, because the extra pawn and the ability to kind of maneuver in and out of light and dark squares will allow Fabi to outplay black. So now you have your goal if you're playing this position as white. And sorry to steal Amon's puzzle for chat, but that's what Fabi's looking for, is how do I get those dark square bishops off the board?
Yep, bishop to d6, and just an example, not that it's amazing, is if we see a move like b4 here, and then black responds with king f8, I might consider bishop c5, just as even though it doubles the pawns, it's that worth it to trade those bishops.
Yeah. Well, to the point, bishop c5 might be a threat on knight e2. Now that the f-pawn is guarded, here comes the threat of bishop c5. So Amon's idea is not imaginary. White
might play
would
b6
love,
here.
Yeah, you're going to play b6 to stop bishop c5. Wait. Okay. A different way to stop bishop c5 with a threat.
Yeah, you're kind of allowing it, but also you have to be careful as white, because if you play bishop c5, you're not getting knight against bishop, because black can actually capture on e2. So you might just lose that endgame. The whole point of trading the bishops is not to also trade the bishop knight. You want to have those left over.
Yeah. What a funny endgame that would have been, by the way. White would have been up a pawn but lost in that king and pawn ending. For any of our more studious fans, go to the chess.com events and just kind of go over the game. You'll see that that's a rare king and pawn ending, to be up a pawn but losing if you were white. So Bobby doesn't go for that.
Yep, knight e5, effectively a draw offer here, by the way. Bishop takes e5. Even though it corrects the pawns, this is 100% going to be a draw, and we might see it agreed soon. But I will say that these are routine. You and I are probably rolling our eyes, and so are these players, as they agree to a draw immediately. But I have to say, Dan,